I stood in Derek's corner office, 20 floors above downtown Chicago, as he adjusted his tie and said the words that would change everything. "My wife thinks you're intimidating, Libby. She mentioned it last night after the charity gala." I felt my face flush. Not anger. Embarrassment. Here I was, 32 years old, the company's vice president of operations, being told I needed to be less. What? Competent? I smiled politely. "I'll be more careful," I said. Then I walked straight to HR and submitted my resignation. That was Tuesday afternoon at 3:15. My heels clicked against the marble floor as I walked back to my office. My hands were shaking, but my mind had never been clearer. I passed Jordan from accounting, who smiled and waved. I passed the break room where 3 junior analysts were laughing over coffee. None of them knew that in the next 60 seconds, I was about to upend my entire career. I closed my office door and sat down at my desk. The Chicago skyline stretched out before me through floor-to-ceiling windows. I had earned this view. 5 years ago, I joined StratPoint Solutions as a mid-level operations manager. The company was a mid-sized logistics and supply chain consulting firm that helped other businesses optimize their distribution networks. It was solid work, respectable, but nothing extraordinary. Derek had just inherited the company from his father, who had built it over 30 years into a reliable, if unremarkable, operation. I remember my first week. The systems were outdated. The processes were inefficient. Client satisfaction scores were dropping. But I saw potential everywhere. I worked late every single night, sometimes until 9 or 10, rebuilding frameworks, creating new protocols, training staff who had been doing things the same way for a decade. Within 18 months, I had turned around 3 major client accounts that were about to leave. I implemented new software systems that increased operational efficiency by 40%. I personally trained every single new operations hire, making sure they understood not just what to do, but why we did it that way. When major problems erupted, I was the person Derek called. Always. 2 years ago, he promoted me to vice president of operations. I managed a team of 18 people and oversaw all major client implementations. We were good, really good. Our client retention rate went from 72% to 94%. Revenue increased by millions. I loved my job. I loved my team. I believed I was building something meaningful. Then Derek got married. Stephanie entered his life 6 months after he became CEO. She was a former pharmaceutical sales rep, blonde and polished, with a smile that could light up a room. She had no business management experience, but she was charming and confident. Derek was smitten immediately. 9 months ago, Stephanie started attending company events. She would stand beside Derek at holiday parties, networking dinners, client appreciation galas. She was always dressed impeccably in designer dresses and expensive jewelry. She smiled at everyone, asked polite questions, and seemed genuinely interested in the business. But I noticed things. The way her eyes would track me during meetings, the way her smile would tighten when clients praised my work, the way Derek started prefacing decisions with "Stephanie thinks" or "Stephanie mentioned." 3 nights before that conversation in Derek's office, we held our annual charity gala. The company sponsored a table at a fundraiser for children's hospitals. I wore a simple navy dress, professional and understated. I spent most of the evening making small talk with clients and board members. That's when Martin Hendricks cornered Derek and me near the silent auction tables. Martin ran a massive automotive distribution network, one of our biggest accounts. He had been unhappy with his previous consulting firm when I took over his account 2 years ago. I spent 6 months personally restructuring his entire supply chain, saving his company millions in inefficiencies. "Derek, you don't know how lucky you are to have Libby," Martin said loudly, his voice carrying across the room. "She saved our entire distribution network. She's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant." I felt my cheeks warm. I thanked Martin graciously and tried to deflect the attention back to the team effort. But I noticed Stephanie watching from across the room. Her expression shifted. Just for a moment. Then, the smile returned. Later that evening, Stephanie approached me by the coat check. "You work such long hours," she said. Her tone was light, conversational. "How do you manage it? Do you have a family?" "A partner?" "No," I said. "I'm pretty focused on my career right now." "Must be hard being so dedicated," she said. The pause before dedicated felt intentional. "Don't you worry about missing out on other parts of life." I felt uncomfortable but remained polite. "I'm happy with my choices." She nodded slowly, her eyes studying me. "I'm sure you are." Now, sitting in my office after Derek's comment about being intimidating, I understood. Stephanie felt threatened. And instead of Derek recognizing the absurdity of that, he had brought it to me as my problem to fix. Crystal appeared in my doorway. She was my senior analyst, and the closest thing I had to a work best friend. One look at my face and she knew something was catastrophically wrong. "What happened?" she asked, closing the door behind her. I told her everything. Derek's comment. Stephanie being in his office. The implication that I needed to change who I was to make Derek's wife more comfortable. Crystal's face went through several emotions. Shock. Anger. Disbelief. "He actually said that? That you're intimidating? You run this entire place. You are literally the reason half our clients stay with us." "Apparently that's the problem," I said quietly. I opened my laptop and drafted a formal resignation letter. 2 weeks' notice, effective immediately. Professional. Brief. No drama. Subject line. Resignation notice. Libby Anderson. Dear Derek and Human Resources, please accept this letter as my formal resignation from the position of Vice President of Operations at StratPoint Solutions. My last day will be Friday, 2 weeks from today. Thank you for the opportunity to contribute to the company's success over the past 5 years. I will ensure a smooth transition of my responsibilities. Sincerely, Libby Anderson. My finger hovered over the send button for just a moment. Then I clicked it. The email whooshed away at 3:45. Crystal stared at me. "You actually did it." "I actually did it," I confirmed. Within 30 minutes, my email pinged. Derek was requesting I come back to his office immediately. Crystal squeezed my hand as I left. When I arrived, Stephanie was sitting in one of Derek's guest chairs. She looked up as I entered, and something flickered across her face. Not surprise. She had been expecting me. "Libby," Derek said. He looked uncomfortable. "I got your resignation." "Yes," I said calmly. "I thought it was best given our conversation earlier." Stephanie leaned forward slightly. "I've been volunteering in the HR department to learn more about the business," she said. Her voice was sweet, sympathetic. "I happened to see your letter come through. I think this might actually be for the best, Derek. The company needs fresh energy, someone more collaborative." The word hung in the air. Collaborative. Another way of saying less threatening. Derek shifted in his chair. He wouldn't meet my eyes. "Libby, if you're sure this is what you want." I waited for him to defend me. To say that I was valuable. That his wife's discomfort wasn't a valid reason for me to leave. To acknowledge what I had built here. He said nothing. "I'll finish out my 2 weeks professionally," I said. "I'll prepare transition documents for whoever takes over my responsibilities." Stephanie smiled. It didn't reach her eyes. "That's very gracious of you." I walked out of that office knowing exactly what had happened. Stephanie had been actively working to push me out, and Derek was too weak, too conflict avoidant, or too blinded by his marriage to stand up for what was right. But here's what neither of them understood yet. They were about to find out exactly what I had been doing all these years, and it was going to cost them everything. Wednesday morning arrived with the kind of crisp autumn air that usually made me love my commute. Today, I felt nothing but a strange sense of detachment. I grabbed my coffee from the lobby cafe and rode the elevator to the 20th floor, watching the numbers climb. The moment I stepped off the elevator, I knew the news had spread. People looked at me differently. Some with confusion, some with sympathy. A few with barely concealed panic. Jake, my senior operations coordinator, was waiting by my office door. He was 28, brilliant with logistics algorithms, and I had personally mentored him for 3 years. His face was pale. "Is it true?" he asked. "You're leaving?" I unlocked my office and gestured for him to come in. "It's true." "Why? What happened? Did you get a better offer?" I kept my answer professional. "It's just time for a change, Jake. Sometimes these things happen. But you built this whole department. You are operations. How are we supposed to?" He trailed off, the implications sinking in. I saw the exact moment fear replaced confusion in his eyes. Throughout the morning, others stopped by. Hannah from Client Services, Marcus from Analytics, even Patricia, our Chief Financial Officer, paused in my doorway with a concerned expression before moving on. Mid-morning, Stephanie arrived at the office. This was unusual. She normally only appeared for special events or meetings. Today, she walked through the operations floor with Derek, both of them stopping to chat with various team members. She was smiling, touching people's arms, playing the role of supportive CEO's wife. I heard fragments of her conversations. Change can be healthy for organizations. Sometimes fresh perspectives are exactly what we need. Exciting opportunities ahead. Derek called an afternoon meeting for the entire operations team. We gathered in the main conference room, 18 people who had worked together to build something exceptional. Derek stood at the head of the table with Stephanie beside him. "I want to address the news about Libby's departure," Derek began. He sounded rehearsed. "While we're sad to see her go, this gives us an opportunity to restructure operations in a way that aligns with our future growth strategy. I'll be taking a more hands-on role in operations management, with support from Stephanie, who has been learning the business from the ground up." The room was silent. I watched my team's faces. They knew what this meant. Stephanie had no operations experience. Derek had always delegated the complex operational work to me, because he didn't understand the details. This was a disaster waiting to happen. At 2 o'clock, my phone rang. Martin Hendricks. My stomach tightened. "Libby." His voice was clipped, angry. "I just got a call from Derek telling me you're leaving Stratpoint. What the hell is going on?" I chose my words carefully. "I've decided to pursue other opportunities, Martin. It's nothing personal." "Nothing personal." His voice rose. "You personally handled our account for 2 years. You fixed problems before we even knew they existed. You restructured our entire Midwest distribution hub. Derek doesn't understand what you've been doing. Hell, I don't think anyone there understands what you've been doing." He paused, and I heard him take a breath. "Did they push you out?" I didn't answer. My silence said everything. "I need to think about our contract with Stratpoint," Martin said coldly. "Well, be in touch." The line went dead. Late afternoon, Crystal pulled me into an empty conference room. Her expression was grim. "I found something," she said, opening her laptop. I was working on the quarterly client report, pulling data from old files. "Look at this." She showed me email chains from the past year. Internal communications between Derek and the board. Every major problem I had solved. Every new client I had landed. Every efficiency improvement I had implemented, Derek had presented in board meetings as a collaborative team effort, or the result of his strategic leadership. I stared at the screen. He took credit for my work. "Not just took credit," Crystal said. "He erased you from the narrative. The board has no idea how much you actually do. They think Derek is this operational genius. They think the whole team contributes equally. They don't know that you are the reason this department functions." My hands felt cold. All these years, I thought my work spoke for itself. I thought people knew. But Derek had been systematically ensuring that no one understood my true value. An hour later, Derek stopped by my office. He looked stressed. "Hey, Libby. I'm working on the quarterly board presentation. Can you pull together the operations summary like you always do? Just the key metrics, trends, projections? You know what they want to see." I looked at him for a long moment. He had been depending on me to write his presentations for years, to make him look competent, to cover for his lack of operational knowledge. "Given that I'm leaving, I think you should handle this one yourself, Derek," I said calmly. "It'll be good practice for when I'm gone." His face went pale. But you always. I know, I said. That's the problem. Stephanie appeared in the doorway. She had been listening. I can help you with that, honey, she said brightly. How hard can it be? I turned back to my computer, dismissing them both. As they walked away, I heard Stephanie's voice, confident and assured. She had no idea what she was volunteering for. Thursday morning arrived with an email that changed everything. I saw it at 8 o'clock, copied on a client communication thread I was still part of. Martin Hendricks had sent it at midnight. Subject: Contract termination. Notice: Hendricks Automotive Distribution. Derek. After careful consideration, we have decided to terminate our consulting contract with StratPoint Solutions, effective immediately. Without Libby's direct involvement and oversight of our account, we have no confidence in your operations capabilities. Our legal team will be in touch regarding the transition period outlined in our agreement. Regards, Martin Hendricks. 23% of the company's annual revenue. Gone. In less than 48 hours after my resignation. Derek burst into my office at 8:15. He looked terrible. His tie was crooked, his hair uncombed. He clearly hadn't slept. You have to call him, he said without preamble. Fix this. Tell him you'll still manage his account remotely or something. Anything. I met his eyes. I don't work in client relations, Derek. That's your role as CEO. You should reach out to Martin and assure him that StratPoint can handle his needs. But he wants you. He specifically said. He said he has no confidence in StratPoint's operations capabilities without me. I corrected. That's a company problem, not a me problem. Not anymore. Derek stared at me like I had slapped him. I think he finally understood that I wasn't going to save him from the consequences of his decisions. He left my office without another word. I heard him on the phone in his office, voice rising. An emergency executive meeting was called for that afternoon. And I knew this was just the beginning. The emergency executive meeting started at 2 o'clock on Thursday afternoon. I wasn't invited, but I didn't need to be. The raised voices carried down the hallway. The board was demanding answers about losing the Hendricks account. Jake came to my office around 3, looking shaken. Derek just asked me to take over the Pendleton account, he said. Pendleton was one of our top 5 clients, a massive retail distribution network I had been managing personally for 18 months. That's a good opportunity for you, I said carefully. Libby, I've never handled anything that complex. When I asked Derek for your process documentation, he said, and I quote, just figure it out. How hard can it be? I pulled up my private files. I had comprehensive documentation for every major client account, detailed process maps, escalation protocols, key contact lists, historical issue logs. I had been meticulous because I knew how quickly things could fall apart without proper knowledge transfer. Prepare transition documents, I told Jake. I won't leave you hanging. His relief was palpable. Thank you. Derek and Stephanie don't seem to understand that these accounts require specific expertise. Stephanie actually suggested in the meeting that we should simplify our approach to make things easier to manage. I closed my eyes briefly. Simplify. The death knell of complex operations. Friday morning, Crystal appeared at my door before I had even set down my bag. Her face was set in a determined expression I knew well. I got a job offer, she said. Meridian Consulting. They're a competitor. The recruiter specifically asked if I knew anyone else who might be interested in leaving StratPoint. My chest tightened. What did you tell them? I told them I'd think about it. Then I asked if they were interested in talking to you. They are. Very interested. Crystal. I'm taking the job, Libby. I've already decided. If you're not here, I don't want to be either. Stephanie has no idea what she's doing, and Derek won't stand up to her. This place is going to implode. She handed me a business card. This is the recruiter. She's expecting your call. I slipped the card into my desk drawer without looking at it. The reality was sinking in. My team was abandoning ship. And I couldn't blame them. Friday afternoon, Patricia requested a private meeting. We sat in her office with the door closed. She was in her late 50s, sharp as a knife, and had been with StratPoint for 12 years. I've been reviewing the departmental numbers, Patricia said without preamble. Your operations team has consistently exceeded every target for the past 3 years. Client satisfaction is the highest it's ever been. Efficiency metrics are off the charts. You've saved this company millions. She leaned forward. Why are you really leaving, Libby? I kept my voice steady. I think it's time for new leadership in operations. Patricia studied me. That's not an answer. That's corporate speak. She paused. Is this about Stephanie? I didn't confirm or deny. My silence was answer enough. Patricia sighed deeply. She's been pushing to be more involved in operations. She corners me in the hallway, asking questions about process management and team structure. She doesn't have the background for this, Libby, and Derek won't listen to me when I try to tell him. Then you have a problem, I said quietly. No, Patricia corrected. We have a problem. This company can't afford instability right now. We just lost Hendricks. If other clients follow. She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. The rest of Friday was eerily quiet. My last day was next Friday, 1 week away. People were treating me like I was already gone, avoiding eye contact, speaking in hushed tones. Stephanie spent the afternoon walking around operations, making suggestions that demonstrated her complete lack of understanding about what we actually did. At 4:30, another email hit the executive thread. I was still copied. Another major client, Cascade Logistics, requesting an immediate call with Derek. They represented 15% of annual revenue. I watched the email chain unfold in real time. The client had heard about Martin Hendricks leaving. They had concerns about operational stability. They asked specifically, who will be managing our account going forward? We need to know that someone with Libby's expertise will be handling our projects. Derek responded within minutes. I will personally oversee your account to ensure continued excellence. The client's response was diplomatic but devastating. With all due respect, Derek, we need Libby. She's been our point person for 2 years. She knows our systems, our challenges, our goals. We need assurance that her departure won't impact our service quality. Derek didn't have a good answer. He typed several responses, each more desperate than the last. I watched him delete and retype. Finally, he sent something vague about transition planning and team expertise. The client didn't respond. I sat back in my chair as the full scope of the situation crystallized. I hadn't just been valuable. I had been the load-bearing wall of the entire client portfolio. And now that wall was being removed. The building was about to collapse. Saturday morning, my phone rang while I was grocery shopping. Derek's personal cell. I considered letting it go to voicemail, then answered. Libby. His voice was raw. I know it's the weekend. I'm sorry to bother you. But we need to talk. Please. What is it, Derek? I made a mistake. A big mistake. Stephanie was concerned about some things, and I should have handled it differently. Better. I should have defended you. I should have. He took a shaky breath. Can we meet? Coffee? Lunch? Anything. I don't think that's necessary, I said calmly. Please just think about staying. Name your price. Seriously. Whatever you want. Co-op position. Equity stake. Double salary. Just please don't leave. The desperation in his voice was palpable. Part of me felt vindicated. Part of me just felt sad. It's not about money, Derek, I said. Then what is it about? How could I explain to him that you can't put a price on being valued? On working somewhere that doesn't see your competence as a threat? It's about respect, I said finally. And you can't buy that back once it's gone. I hung up before he could respond. Sunday evening, Crystal texted me. The messages came rapid fire. Crystal. Jake got an offer from Meridian too. Crystal. 2 other people from our team are interviewing at competitors. Crystal. Word got out about how they treated you, Crystal. No one wants to work under Stephanie's direction. Crystal. This is bad. I stared at my phone. The exodus had begun. Monday morning felt like walking into a funeral. The operations floor was tense and quiet. Derek called an emergency team meeting at 9. We gathered in the conference room, but now we were only 16 people. 2 team members had called in sick, a suspiciously convenient absence. Derek stood at the head of the table with Stephanie beside him. He looked exhausted. She looked determined. "I want to address the elephant in the room," Derek said. "Yes, we're experiencing some transition challenges. Yes, we've lost a client. But StratPoint has weathered changes before. We're going to be fine." Stephanie stepped forward. "I'm excited to announce that I'll be stepping in to provide operational oversight during this transition period. I've been studying the business for months. I understand the fundamentals. What we need now is fresh thinking and collaborative leadership." The room was dead silent. Hannah, one of our client specialists, raised her hand tentatively. "What's your background in operations management?" Stephanie smiled brightly. "I spent 5 years in pharmaceutical sales, which taught me all about relationship management and strategic thinking. Operations is fundamentally about people and processes, right? I'm a quick learner." I watched Jake's face turn white. Marcus stared at the table. Hannah looked like she might cry. Monday afternoon, Stephanie held her first official operations team meeting without Derek present. She had clearly been reading business management books. She used every buzzword imaginable. "We need to leverage synergies," she said, standing at the whiteboard. "Create paradigm shifts in how we approach client relationships. Find the low-hanging fruit and optimize our bandwidth." Jake tried to explain why certain procedures existed. Why we had specific protocols for client communications. Why we couldn't just simplify complex supply chain implementations. Stephanie cut him off. "That's exactly the problem here, Jake. Too much resistance to change. We need to think outside the box. Maybe that's why some of our processes are so complicated. We've been doing them the same way for too long." I said nothing. I simply took notes, documenting everything. These notes would be part of my transition materials. Evidence of what was happening. Tuesday morning at 8:42. The second email arrived. Cascade Logistics. The client who had asked about continued service quality. Subject: contract termination. Cascade Logistics. Derek. We have carefully considered your response regarding our account management going forward. Unfortunately, without Libby's direct involvement, and given the uncertainty around your operations leadership, we have decided to terminate our contract effective 30 days from today. We wish you the best, but we cannot risk our business operations on an unstable partnership. Regards, Cascade Logistics Leadership Team. 38% of annual revenue. Gone. In less than 1 week, the board demanded another emergency meeting. This one lasted 3 hours. I heard shouting. I heard Derek's voice, strained and defensive. I heard Stephanie's voice, higher-pitched, insistent. When they emerged, Derek looked like he had aged 5 years. He came directly to my office, closing the door behind him. "Libby," his voice cracked. "I'll do anything. I mean it. Anything. Double your salary. Triple it. Make you chief operating officer. Full executive benefits. Company car. Whatever you want, just please stay." I folded my hands on my desk. Did Stephanie agree to this offer? He hesitated. Just a fraction of a second. But I saw it. "I thought so." I said. "She's upset about the client losses. She's stressed. But she'll come around once she sees." "Derek, stop." I interrupted. "You chose to value your wife's insecurity over your company's stability. You chose to let her push out your most valuable employee because she felt threatened. Those were choices you made consciously. And now you're dealing with the consequences. But we can fix this. You can fix this." "No," I said firmly. "I can't. Because the problem isn't operational. The problem is leadership. And I can't fix that." He left my office looking broken. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. Wednesday morning, Stephanie made a catastrophic mistake. Without consulting anyone, she changed a critical client delivery protocol. One of our major clients, an automotive manufacturer, had specific requirements for parts delivery tracking. We had spent months implementing a precise system that met their quality control standards. Stephanie decided it was too complicated and instructed the team to use a simplified reporting method. The change caused a shipment delay. Critical parts didn't arrive at the manufacturing plant on time. The production line was affected. The client was furious. Jake tried desperately to fix it, but the damage was done. By afternoon, the client had sent a formal complaint and was threatening legal action for breach of contract. Derek was on the phone for hours, trying to smooth things over. I heard him throwing Stephanie under the bus, claiming it was a miscommunication, an error in judgment by someone still learning the systems. When Stephanie found out Derek had blamed her, I heard them arguing in his office. Thursday morning changed everything. At 8 o'clock, Crystal walked into my office and placed her resignation letter on my desk. "Effective immediately," she said. "I'm taking the Meridian offer. I start Monday." At 9:15, Jake submitted his resignation. Same thing. Immediate departure. New job lined up. By noon, 3 more operations employees had resigned. Sarah from Client Analytics, Marcus from Process Optimization, Hannah from Client Services. 5 critical people. Gone in one morning. Derek was in full panic mode. He called an emergency all-hands meeting. The remaining 13 operations employees gathered, along with people from other departments who wanted to see what was happening. Stephanie stood beside Derek, her face flushed. When Derek started to speak, she cut him off. "This is ridiculous," she said, her voice shaking. "People leave jobs all the time. It's not a crisis." "Fine. Good. We don't need people who aren't committed to this company's vision. I'll run operations myself. I've been watching for months. I've been studying. It's not that complicated. It's just logistics and client management. I can handle it." The room was completely silent. Derek looked at her, then at the remaining staff. He opened his mouth, then closed it. He said nothing to contradict her. That's when I knew it was truly over. Stephanie's ego and insecurity had completely blinded her to reality. She genuinely believed she could step into a role that required years of specialized experience. And Derek was too weak to tell her the truth. The company was doomed, and there was nothing I could do about it. More importantly, there was nothing I wanted to do about it. My last day was tomorrow, and I couldn't wait to leave. Thursday afternoon, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered cautiously. "Libby Anderson." A woman's voice, professional and warm. "Speaking. My name is Jennifer Walsh. I'm a senior recruiter with Titan Logistics. I understand you're transitioning out of StratPoint Solutions. I'd like to talk to you about an opportunity." My heart rate picked up. Titan Logistics was StratPoint's biggest competitor. They were massive, well-run, and had an excellent reputation in the industry. "What kind of opportunity?" I asked. "We're opening a new client services division. We're looking for someone to head it as regional vice president. Complete autonomy, significant compensation package, and equity options." Your name came up immediately. "I've heard exceptional things about your work at StratPoint." We talked for 20 minutes. Jennifer was impressive. The role was impressive. The company culture sounded like everything StratPoint used to be before Stephanie got involved. "Can I have 24 hours to consider?" I asked. "Absolutely. Take your time. But Libby, between you and me, we'd love to have you. We've been watching StratPoint's operational efficiency for years. Everyone in the industry knows you're the reason they've been performing so well." After we hung up, I sat staring at my computer screen. A door was closing, but another one was opening. A bigger, better door. Friday. My final day. I arrived early, wanting to finish my transition documents and leave cleanly. The office felt different. Emptier. Half my team was already gone. The remaining employees looked shell-shocked. Stephanie was in the operations area when I arrived, sitting at Crystal's old desk, frantically clicking through the project management software. She looked exhausted, her perfect hair pulled into a messy ponytail, her makeup smudged. At 9 o'clock, a system alert flashed across every operations computer. Critical error in the inventory management system. This system fed real-time data to 12 active client accounts. If it went down, clients couldn't track their shipments, manage their inventory, or coordinate their logistics. I heard Stephanie's voice rise in panic. What does this mean? How do I fix this? Jake was gone. Crystal was gone. The people who understood these systems had left. The remaining staff were junior employees who had never handled a crisis of this magnitude. Stephanie appeared in my doorway. Her face was pale, her eyes wide. Can you fix this before you go? Please. I don't know how to. I looked at her calmly. I thought about all the times I had stayed late, fixed problems, saved the day. I thought about Derek's comment about being intimidating. I thought about Stephanie's smug smile when she said my departure was for the best. That's an operations management issue, Stephanie, I said. You're running operations now. I'm sure you'll figure it out. Her face flushed red. For a moment, I thought she might yell at me. Instead, she turned and practically ran back to the operations area. At 10 o'clock, Patricia appeared at my door. She looked grim. The board has authorized me to make you an offer, she said, closing the door behind her. Chief Operating Officer. 20% equity stake in the company. Full executive compensation package. Whatever salary you want. I leaned back in my chair. It was a good offer. A great offer, actually. Can I ask you something honestly, Patricia? Of course. If I stay, will Derek ever stand up to Stephanie? Will he ever prioritize the company's needs over keeping his wife happy? Patricia was quiet for a long moment. Then she shook her head slowly. Probably not. Then I can't accept, I said. Because Derek will never override Stephanie's opinions. And Stephanie sees me as a threat. That's not sustainable. That's not a healthy working environment. And I won't spend my career managing someone else's insecurity. Patricia nodded slowly. I understand. And for what it's worth, I think you're making the right decision. This place is going to burn down. I'm giving it 3 months before the board forces major changes. At 11 o'clock, the company's external auditors arrived for their scheduled quarterly review. They were on site every quarter to verify our financial controls and operational compliance. Within an hour, they had flagged multiple issues. Several compliance procedures hadn't been followed properly over the past week. These were procedures I normally oversaw personally. Stephanie had signed off on reports without understanding what they were. She had approved things that should have been escalated. She had missed deadlines for regulatory filings. The auditors were concerned. Very concerned. This could trigger regulatory investigations, potential fines, serious consequences. Derek spent the next 2 hours in meetings with the auditors, trying to explain, trying to minimize, trying to fix what couldn't be fixed quickly. At noon, I packed the last items from my desk. My awards, photos, the coffee mug my team had given me last Christmas with "World's Best Boss" written on it. I ran my hand over my desk one last time. I heard shouting from the boardroom. Loud, angry voices. Then the door burst open. Stephanie rushed out, mascara running down her face. She was crying. She saw me in the hallway. Our eyes met. Her expression shifted from despair to pure rage. She stormed toward me, her voice breaking. What did you do? The board just reviewed everything. The client losses, the audit findings, the employee resignations. They're demanding answers. They're talking about removing Derek. Derek emerged from the boardroom behind her. He looked defeated, destroyed. His tie was loose, his shirt wrinkled. I had never seen him look so broken. Stephanie, stop, he said quietly. She whirled on him. Tell them this is Libby's fault. She sabotaged us. She must have done something before leaving. Tell them. Derek looked at me. Then at his wife. Then back at me. Stephanie, please stop, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. She didn't sabotage anything. She just left. That's all she did. She left. The weight of those words hung in the air. The truth was finally spoken. The company wasn't falling apart because I had done something malicious. It was falling apart because I had been holding it together all along. Because I had been solving problems before anyone else even saw them. because I had been the operational backbone of the entire organization. And now I was gone. Stephanie stared at Derek, then at me. The realization crashed over her face. She had destroyed her husband's company because she felt threatened by a competent woman. Because she needed to be the most important person in Derek's life, even if it meant tearing down someone who was keeping his business alive. "I'm sorry this happened," I said quietly. "And I meant it. Not sorry for leaving. Sorry that it had come to this. Sorry that ego and insecurity had caused so much damage." I picked up my box of belongings and walked toward the elevator. I didn't look back. As the elevator doors closed, I saw Stephanie collapse into Derek's arms, sobbing. I saw employees standing in doorways, watching silently. I saw the physical manifestation of a company in freefall, and I felt nothing but relief. Friday evening, I stood in my apartment, surrounded by boxes from my office. The Chicago skyline glowed outside my windows. I poured myself a glass of wine and called Jennifer Walsh. "I'm interested in the Titan Logistics position," I said. Saturday morning, I met with the Titan Logistics executive team at their downtown headquarters. The building was modern, bright, and bustling with energy, the complete opposite of StratPoint's increasingly tense atmosphere. Richard Chen, the CEO, was in his mid-50s with an easy smile and sharp eyes. He was nothing like Derek. When he asked questions, he actually listened to the answers. When I explained my approach to operations management, he took notes. "We want to build something exceptional," Richard said. "We've been watching StratPoint's client retention rates for years. Everyone in the industry knows those numbers are because of you, not Derek. We want to give you the resources and autonomy to build a division that reflects your vision." The salary was 40% higher than my VP role at StratPoint. The equity package was generous, the benefits were comprehensive. But more than any of that, I felt respected, valued, seen. "When can you start?" Richard asked. "Monday," I said. He laughed. "That's the kind of decisiveness we need. Welcome to Titan Logistics, Libby." We shook hands. I walked out of that building feeling lighter than I had in months, maybe years. Monday morning, my first day at Titan Logistics. I arrived at 7:30, eager and energized. My new office was smaller than my old one, but the view was better. More importantly, the energy was better. Richard stopped by at 8. "I wanted your opinion on something," he said. "We're evaluating potential new clients. Several companies have reached out recently, looking for new consulting partners. I thought you might have insights." We reviewed the list together. When I saw Martin Hendrick's company name, I paused. "I should mention that I have non-solicitation clauses in my StratPoint separation agreement," I said. "I can't actively recruit former clients. But if they come to us independently," Richard nodded. "We'd never ask you to violate your agreement. But if former clients reach out to us on their own initiative, that's different. That's the market working as it should." I appreciated his ethics. It confirmed I had made the right choice. Tuesday afternoon, a LinkedIn message appeared in my inbox. "Martin Hendricks. Heard you landed at Titan Logistics. Congratulations. Well deserved. We're currently evaluating logistics consulting firms. Would Titan Logistics be interested in submitting a proposal for our business?" I forwarded the message to Richard immediately. He responded within minutes. "Absolutely. Can you lead the proposal team?" We spent the next 2 days crafting a comprehensive proposal. I knew Martin's business inside and out. I knew his pain points, his goals, his distribution challenges. I built a strategy specifically tailored to his needs. Thursday, we presented to Martin and his leadership team. I led the presentation. When we finished, Martin smiled. "This is exactly what we need," he said. "When can we start?" We signed the contract that afternoon. Over the next 2 weeks, I threw myself into building the new division. I hired 3 excellent people from my network. I designed processes. I created training programs. I loved every minute of it. Crystal texted me regularly with updates from StratPoint. The news was consistently grim. "Crystal, Another client left today, Crystal. Stephanie tried to run a team meeting and people just walked out. Crystal. Derek looks like a ghost, Crystal. The systems issue from your last day still isn't fully fixed, Crystal. Company is hemorrhaging money. I felt bad for the remaining employees. I didn't feel bad for Derek or Stephanie. Wednesday evening, 2 weeks into my new role, I met Crystal and Jake for dinner at a restaurant in River North. They both looked happier than I had seen them in months. Meridian is good, Crystal said, but it's not great. The culture is fine, but it's very corporate. Very rigid. Jake nodded. Same. It's okay. But I miss working with people who actually understand operations at a deep level. I swirled my wine. Titan Logistics is expanding. My new CEO is looking for experienced operations people. I can't promise anything, but I could make introductions. Their faces lit up. Within a week, both had interviews scheduled. Within 2 weeks, both had offers. By the end of the month, Crystal and Jake were on my team at Titan Logistics. It felt like coming home. 3 weeks after I left Stratpoint, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. Libby. Derek's voice. He sounded hollow. I wanted you to hear it from me. The board voted yesterday. I'm being removed as CEO. My father is stepping back in temporarily while they search for a replacement. I was quiet, letting him speak. Stephanie filed for separation last week. She couldn't handle the pressure. The blame. She said I chose the company over her. I told her I didn't choose the company. I just failed at protecting it. I failed at everything. His voice cracked. I heard genuine remorse. Genuine pain. You were right, Libby. About everything. I let Stephanie's insecurity drive decisions. I didn't stand up for you when I should have. I took credit for your work. I didn't value you properly. And I destroyed everything my father built because I was too weak to do the right thing. Derek, I said gently. No, let me finish. I know it's too late. I know I can't fix this. But I wanted you to know that I understand now. What you did for this company. What you meant to our success. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. We talked for a few more minutes. When we hung up, I didn't feel vindicated. I felt sad. Sad that it had taken complete destruction for Derek to see the truth. Sad that Stephanie's jealousy had cost her marriage and her husband's company. Sad that good employees had suffered. But I also felt free. Free from a toxic situation. Free from people who couldn't value me. Free to build something new. 1 month after leaving Stratpoint, Richard called me into his office. He was smiling. I had an interesting conversation this morning. He said. Stratpoint's board reached out. They're looking for an acquisition or partnership to stabilize the company before it completely collapses. They asked if we'd be interested. My stomach dropped. Richard continued. They specifically asked if you'd be willing to consult on the transition. They said they need someone who understands their operations from the inside, someone who can help them salvage what's left. I sat back in my chair. The irony was almost overwhelming. The company that pushed me out for being intimidating was now begging for my help. This is completely your choice, Libby, Richard said. No pressure either way. But if you're willing, we'd compensate you extremely well for consulting work, and it might be good for Titan Logistics to acquire some of Stratpoint's remaining clients and infrastructure. I thought about it carefully. I wasn't vindictive. I didn't want to watch people suffer, but I also wouldn't let anyone take advantage of me again. I'll do it, I said. But on my terms. Professional boundaries, fair compensation. No direct contact with Derek or Stephanie. I'll work with Patricia and the board only. And I'm not fixing their leadership problems. I'll help stabilize operations, but they need to solve their own cultural issues. Richard nodded. Fair enough. I'll set up the meeting. And just like that, I went from being the intimidating problem they needed to eliminate to being the solution they desperately needed. The tables had turned completely. I spent 2 weeks consulting for Stratpoint through Titan Logistics. The experience was surreal. Walking back into that building as an outside consultant, being paid triple my former hourly rate, working directly with the board while Derek and Stephanie were nowhere to be seen. The company was in worse shape than I imagined. 3 more clients had left. The operations team was down to 8 people. Systems were failing. Processes had collapsed. It was barely functional. I did what I could. I stabilized the critical systems. I trained their new interim operations director, a competent woman named Angela, who had been brought in from outside. I helped them retain their few remaining major clients by personally reaching out and assuring them that changes were being made. I did it all with professionalism and grace. No drama. No I told you so moments, just solid work. On my final consulting day, Patricia asked to speak with me privately in a conference room. She looked tired but relieved. "The board wanted me to tell you something," she said. "We reviewed everything that happened over the past 6 months. We know Derek systematically took credit for your work. We know Stephanie's involvement was inappropriate and damaging. We know you were pushed out because of personal jealousy, not professional reasons." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "Several board members asked me to tell you that they're deeply sorry. We should have been more aware of what was happening. We should have recognized your value earlier. We failed you, and we're sorry." The acknowledgement meant more than I expected. I felt tears prick my eyes. "Thank you, Patricia. That means something," she smiled sadly. "For what it's worth, Derek's father is selling the company. Titan Logistics is the front-runner for acquisition. The irony isn't lost on any of us that you'll probably end up running what's left of StratPoint anyway, just from the other side." 6 months later, I stood in my new office at Titan Logistics, Senior Vice President of Client Services, corner office on the 25th floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lake Michigan. My division was thriving. We had brought in 12 major clients, including most of StratPoint's former portfolio. My team had grown to 15 people. Crystal was my director of operations. Jake was my senior client strategy manager. We had built something exceptional. Richard stopped by that morning with a bottle of champagne. "Congratulations on the promotion," he said. "You've exceeded every expectation. You're exactly what this company needed." I smiled. "Thank you for seeing my value." "Are you kidding? You made it impossible not to see. You're brilliant, decisive, and you get results. That's not intimidating. That's exactly what leadership should look like." That word. Intimidating. It didn't sting anymore. It had become almost funny, a reminder of how far I had come. The Titan Logistics acquisition of StratPoint finalized the following month. Derek's father sold for a fraction of what the company had once been worth. The StratPoint name was absorbed into Titan Logistics. The remaining employees were offered positions with our company. Many accepted. I ran into Derek about 8 months after I left StratPoint. We were both attending a logistics industry conference in Las Vegas. He was working as an independent consultant now, no longer a CEO. He looked older, more weathered, but also somehow lighter. We ended up having coffee between conference sessions. "You look happy," he said. "I am," I replied honestly. "I'm finally working somewhere that appreciates what I bring to the table." He nodded slowly. "I've been doing a lot of thinking. A lot of therapy, actually. Stephanie and I are divorced now. It was the right decision for both of us." "I'm sorry it ended that way." "I'm not," he said. "I learned something important, even if the lesson cost me everything. I learned that you can't build anything sustainable on insecurity. Not a marriage, not a company, not a career." Stephanie was insecure. I was insecure about standing up to her. That insecurity destroyed everything. He looked at me directly. "I hope you know that what happened wasn't about you. It was never about you. You weren't the problem. You were never the problem. You were the solution we were too blind to protect." We talked for another half hour. It was surprisingly healing. Derek had genuinely learned from his mistakes. He would never get his company back, never repair what he had broken, but he had grown as a person. Sometimes that's all you can hope for. I returned to my life, my thriving career, my incredible team, my office with the lake view. my work that challenged and fulfilled me. I thought about everything I had learned over the past year. The journey from that moment in Derek's office when he called me intimidating to this moment, standing in a position of true leadership and respect. I learned that shrinking yourself to make others comfortable isn't kindness. It's self-betrayal. The right people will never ask you to be less than you are. They'll celebrate your strengths, not fear them. I learned that your value isn't determined by whether someone else recognizes it. You know your worth. When you truly know it, you don't have to fight for scraps. You can walk away from situations that don't honor what you bring. I learned that being called intimidating often just means you refuse to play small. You refuse to apologize for your competence. You refuse to dim your light to make others feel brighter. I learned that the best response to being undervalued isn't revenge. It's building a life so fulfilling that you barely remember why you were angry. It's succeeding so thoroughly that the people who pushed you out realize exactly what they lost. I learned that doors close for reasons. And sometimes, the door that closes was actually blocking your path to something much better. Crystal stopped by my office that afternoon, ready for the executive strategy meeting. I grabbed my tablet and portfolio. As we walked toward the conference room, Crystal said quietly, "You know, I heard StratPoint's old office building is being renovated. They're gutting the 20th floor completely. Rebuilding from scratch." I smiled. Sometimes that's what it takes. Sometimes you have to tear everything down and start fresh. Like you did, Crystal said. Like I did. I agreed. The world is full of people who will celebrate your strengths instead of fearing them. People who will build you up instead of pushing you down. People who recognize that a rising tide lifts all boats, and your success doesn't diminish theirs. You just have to be brave enough to leave the people who can't see that. Brave enough to value yourself when others won't. Brave enough to walk away from comfortable mediocrity toward uncertain excellence. And when someone calls you intimidating, maybe the right response isn't to apologize. Maybe it's to recognize that being powerful enough to make small thinking uncomfortable is actually a compliment. It means you're doing something right. I walked into the conference room, took my seat at the executive table, and smiled. I was exactly where I was supposed to be. I had fought back, not with anger or revenge, but by knowing my worth and refusing to accept less. And I had won, not because I destroyed anyone, but because I built something better. That's the best kind of victory there is. Have you ever been in a situation where someone made you feel like you were too much or needed to shrink yourself? How did you handle it? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments. If this resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about finding your worth and standing your ground. And if you know someone who needs to hear this message today, share this video with them. Sometimes we all need the reminder that being powerful isn't something to apologize for. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I hope it reminded you that your value doesn't decrease based on someone's inability to see your worth. Keep standing tall. Keep showing up as your full self. And keep surrounding yourself with people who celebrate you, not just tolerate you. Until next time, remember that you deserve to take up space in this world. Take care.